Space, the final frontier.
It's in my head.
Boy, I don't think we're ever going to get tired of that Chili Peppers song as the theme for Flat Earth videos. It's like the theme track. But okay, I admit it, it's pretty fun to go through clips of NASA footage just for hours on end, looking for space fakery bloopers and everything like that. And it's really amazing to see more and more people recognizing these kinds of blatant errors and the broader implications of how space is being faked in so many ways. And as fun as it is, I always find myself coming back to the bigger questions, not just the who, what, when, and where, but most importantly, the why. And of course, people inevitably point to the motives of fraud and millions and billions of dollars of taxpayer money being siphoned off the unsuspecting public through countless NASA projects and space exploration initiatives. And sure, that's a point, but honestly, I tend to think that since they already own and operate the entire fiat currency system in the first place, honestly, profiting by way of stealing tax money is really quite unnecessary. I mean, they already own everything, so they really don't need to steal their own fake dollars. So, why are they faking it? Is it just to prop up evolution, the entire Big Bang cosmology that's already been in the textbooks for generations? I'd say that's definitely a part of it, a big part of it. But even so, I believe there's a lot more, an even broader narrative for which materialistic evolution ultimately only serves as a stepping stone. And that is a spiritual narrative, a spiritual agenda, which, to be perfectly honest with you, in the end, I don't think it even hinges upon whether you believe that outer space is real or if it indeed was made in a Hollywood basement. I'm actually quite convinced that people can stop believing in the fantasy of outer space and yet still wind up taking a ride to the destination desired by the occult elites, by way of the old spaceship of the imagination. I've been meaning for a long time to talk about the topic of vector symbolism, found not just in NASA's but virtually every space agency logo, lots of different corporate logos, and even the emblem of the Federation from Star Trek. Now, setting aside the ridiculous claim that the vector symbol is based off some early wing design. I really think all we need to do is to take a look at just the basic definition of a vector, and we can start to see some very telling things as to the true underlying symbolism being used by all these fraudulent space agencies. Mathematically speaking, a vector is just about magnitude and direction. When it comes to the supposed application of this concept to spaceflight, it's again pretty straightforward. Supposedly, rockets are launched at just the right trajectory in order to achieve orbit. And that parabolic arc of the launch trajectory is supposed to line up with the desired orbital path. So you have two lines, converging. One line leaving the Earth, meaning the other line of that orbital path. And codified in this basic symbol of the vector or the chevron, I believe, is the occult belief in the apotheosis of man. Really, it is the essence of the entire Luciferian dream. And if you just step back and think about it, it's all right there. The ultimate goal of the entire New World Order mystery religion. It's transcendence, apotheosis, becoming God. And I think from this angle, we can really appreciate how polytheism and pantheism really do work in conjunction with each other. They really are just two elements of the same overarching mystical belief system. And it is that system that is the real agenda behind all the deception going on here. Pushing humanity back to embracing the ancient Gnostic mystical conception of the cosmos, where the divine, quote unquote, is in everything, and thus everything is God, and so the ultimate destiny of man is to claim our own divinity. The quote gods of ancient pagan mythology, whom the elites still worship, are regarded as themselves only being extensions of the divine. They're just merely farther along in the process of apotheosis, and so considered worthy of emulation. This is why ancient paganism, as well as our own modern-day culture, is obsessed with hero worship. The pagan mind idolizes that which it desires to become. And this is why I believe in Genesis 6 that actually when talking about the Nephilim, who are the children of the fallen angels, it describes them as the heroes of old, the men of renown. And we see them in Greek mythology and lots of mythologies. It's always the origin of the whole concept of a hero is directly derived from the fallen watchers and the Nephilim. And so this whole metaphor here, this whole symbol, this whole metaphor is about the desire to evolve from the current earthly human condition to a higher celestial existence. It's the longing to become like the quote gods they worship. Gods who are, in reality just simply fallen angels. And this is really the spiritual message that is being echoed everywhere we turn in our society, and it can be easily absorbed even by the increasing numbers of people who are waking up to the fact that NASA is a total fraud, and that there's no observable curvature, and there's no such thing as outer space, and so on. And what I find amazing is that you can see this not just on the American side with the occult roots of things like the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab with Jack Parsons, who was a disciple of Aleister Crowley and so on, but also on the Russian side of the development of the entire space race. In so much of the old Soviet space-themed artwork and propaganda as well, you can clearly see the same theme of apotheosis, the same iconography of ascension, of breaking through and soaring above and everything. And I highly encourage anyone who hasn't done so yet to do some research into the topic of Russian cosmism, which was a mystical philosophical movement that actually provided the ideological foundation for the Russian populace to start dreaming of breaking their earthly bonds and eventually colonizing the galaxy, and which eventually led to the space program in Russia. I did a video on that. I'll leave the link below, and it's pretty fascinating. And really, throughout the entire span of the history of so-called space travel, from the very first writers and people experimenting with rockets and so on, on through the 20th century and to this very day, central to all of it has been the effort to capture the imagination. Even in Carl Sagan's famous space documentary, Cosmos, which was remade a few years back using Neil deGrasse Tyson, the entire thing centers around the hosts flying through painted and CGI rendered images of the Copernican universe in the most ironically named Spaceship of the Imagination. And what so many people are ultimately imagining, whether they believe in NASA or not, is that they can eventually become one with the cosmos, become one with everything, and become one with their own inner divinity, and so on. And again, this is ironic because if you're just honest and you stop and look around at the entertainment industry, at Hollywood, at the media, this is the spiritual message being preached. And so it's quite baffling when you hear people rejecting so much of the propaganda on one side when it comes to materialistic evolution and space programs and things like this, and yet they seem to be oblivious to the fact that they're still swallowing whole, the spiritual propaganda coming from the very same system. And what is being imagined through all that on the spiritual level is just pure delusion. And they're actually echoing the Luciferian lies of the one they're following, whether knowingly or unknowingly. And in Isaiah 14, it describes Lucifer's ultimate aims, where it says, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But then, of course, but you are brought down to Sheol, to the far reaches of the pit. So, for anyone listening today, I ask, is it understood that Hollywood sells that false imagination? Is it understood that Hollywood sells self-deification? Is it understood that Hollywood sells mass occultification?
That's part of the fun of this, is pretending that I'm actually going there.